Hey there, before we dive into today's story, let me tell you, this one's different. The Exit Was the Beginning is a five-part series, a powerful emotional journey of loss, healing, and quiet revenge. Each part builds on the last, so make sure you watch them in order to truly feel the full impact. If you're into stories about strength, transformation, and rising when no one expects it, you're in the right place. This is the Soul Script, where every story is written to move your heart and feed your fire. So don't forget to watch each part, like the video if it speaks to you, and subscribe to the Soul Script so you never miss a moment. Not just of this story, but of the many more just like it that are coming your way. Now, let's begin. Ava stood in the foyer of the penthouse she helped build, not decorate, build. From late nights editing pitch decks to early mornings, packing lunches for a man who swore he didn't believe in titles. Now, that same man, Julian, was pacing the living room with his phone pressed to his ear, smiling at someone he said was just a colleague. The same colleague who once asked Ava to mentor her. His mother, Celeste, sat by the fireplace, flipping through a luxury catalog as if Ava's bags at the door were just an eyesore she wished would disappear. Ava waited for Julian to say something, anything, but all she got was a nod. "You're strong. You'll bounce back," he said, like she was being laid off, not left behind. No hug, no apology, no eye contact. Ava picked up her bags and walked out. No tears. Not yet. The night air was sharp, not winter cold, but betrayal cold. That kind that cuts through your coat and straight into your bones. Ava's rideshare was late. Her phone battery, 2%. Her heart, 0%. She sat on the concrete steps of the building, the same ones where Julian once proposed a life of limitless potential. Now all she had was a suitcase and silence. But as she looked out over the city lights, something shifted. Relief. Real, terrifying, soul-deep relief. She was finally out. Out of the shadow of a man who only loved her ideas but never credited her name. Out of the expectations of a family that praised her in public but picked her apart in private. She had nothing except a plan that started the moment they showed her the door. Ava wasn't new to loss. She was raised by her Aunt Gloria, a woman who wore pearls with sweatpants, and taught Ava the value of both grit and grace. Gloria ran an underground investing group for Black women in tech before the world ever saw them as venture material. She made Ava memorize two things by age 10. Never let your name be louder than your power. Never show your whole hand, just enough to be underestimated. What Julian didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Ava had 3 LLCs under a childhood nickname and enough equity in a startup that had just gone public to change her zip code and 10 others. She never flaunted it, not because she was ashamed, because she was watching, waiting. For the moment, they mistook her silence for surrender. Now it had come. Ava checked into a quiet guest house on the edge of the city. No doorman, no valet. Just peace. She unplugged everything, phone, laptop, expectations. She let herself cry once, then got to work. Morning meditations turned into strategy sessions. She read market trends over herbal tea and sent encrypted emails by candlelight. Within weeks, she'd funded a scholarship under her aunt's name, quietly bought out a failing media company, and invested in a mental health startup for women of color. She didn't post about it. She wasn't building a brand. She was building an empire, one they'd never see coming. She wasn't out for revenge. She was out for restoration. Julian was spiraling. His colleague-turned-girlfriend wasn't impressed with unpaid internships and half-baked business plans. She wanted the lifestyle Ava built, without the patience it took to build it. Credit cards maxed. The building HOA called about missed dues. Celeste? She had to cancel her summer trip to Monaco. The whispers began in social circles. Did you hear Ava left him? No, he left her. Well, whichever one it was, she's glowing. Ava heard none of it. She was too busy designing blueprints for something bigger. She wasn't just healing. She was returning to herself. 3 months after leaving the penthouse, Ava walked into a high-rise downtown. Not to beg, not to plead, to buy. The same firm Julian once interned at, the one that turned her down for a junior analyst role because she was overqualified, was now on the brink of collapse. Ava knew. She'd been watching their balance sheets through a partner she once mentored in secret. Now, she slid a check across the table, clean, direct, and full. No financing, no loans, just power. When asked what name to put on the ownership docs, she smiled. Glory Holdings. Her aunt's legacy reborn. The partners didn't recognize her. Not until she walked out. Not until one whispered, "Isn't that Julian's ex?" No one answered. Because Ava had just become the name on their paychecks. Ava didn't post wins. She didn't need to. But word moved anyway. The girl who left with nothing just bought into 3 companies and turned one around in 6 weeks. She didn't hold press conferences, she held rooms, at quiet dinners, at invitation-only events. People leaned in when she spoke, especially women who'd been dismissed for being too emotional or too ambitious. They saw her and remembered who they were. Meanwhile, Julian tried to rebrand. He started a podcast, called it The Bounce Back. Irony was lost on him, especially when episode 1 got 5 downloads, and 2 of them were bots. He talked about Ava like she was a phase, a season. But Ava? She wasn't a chapter. She was the whole book. The penthouse went up for auction in March. Julian couldn't keep up. Neither could Celeste, who drained her savings trying to save face. Ava didn't attend in person. She sent a representative, a quiet woman in black, carrying a single envelope. She outbid every offer by $200,000, signed in silence, and left without a word. When asked who the new owner was, she simply said, "It's returning to its rightful energy." Later that week, Ava stood outside the building she once left heartbroken. Not to move in, to transform it. She handed the keys to a nonprofit that helps women exiting toxic relationships. The new name on the building plaque? The Gloria Center. No cameras, no press, just healing, repurposed into legacy. Julian hit rock bottom in slow motion. His girlfriend left after a loud fight that made it onto TikTok. Celeste moved in with a cousin in Tampa. And the podcast shut down after his mic broke. And he couldn't afford a new one. He tried to contact Ava through friends, through emails, even through LinkedIn. All blocked. He showed up at one of her events once uninvited. Security handled it. She never even looked his way. He told people she was heartless, that she used him. But those who knew Ava knew better. She didn't burn bridges. She simply crossed them and never looked back. Ava's new circle wasn't loud. It was powerful. Formerly silenced women who now ran funds, nonprofits, art galleries. They met monthly, no agendas, just intention. One night, they toasted over wine and soul food. Ava looked around the room and said, They called us distractions, liabilities, background noise. She raised her glass. But here we are, front and center, quietly running the world. Laughter echoed. One woman whispered, "They underestimated the wrong ones." Ava smiled. Exactly. Every morning, Ava stood barefoot on her balcony, tea in hand. No makeup, no mask, just herself. She had nothing left to prove and everything to live for. Her reflection no longer showed exhaustion. It showed power. She journaled daily, writing lines like, "I am no longer auditioning for belonging." That balcony became her sanctuary, where she planned million-dollar deals while wrapped in silk robes. The same city that once made her feel invisible now rose to meet her gaze. And every time she exhaled, it felt like reclaiming breath they once tried to steal. Ava began acquiring properties in neighborhoods the city had forgotten, not to gentrify, to protect, to preserve. She bought an abandoned school and turned it into a business incubator for single mothers. She restored a block of storefronts and leased them for $1 to local entrepreneurs. She didn't want recognition. She wanted results. Ava didn't just sign deeds. She rewrote destinies. And while others chased clout, she was quietly becoming a legend. A top magazine reached out, wanted to do a profile. Ava James, from cast aside to quiet queen. They offered a cover, a photo shoot, an exclusive. She declined, respectfully. "I'm not interested in being seen," she replied. "I'm focused on what I'm building." They called her elusive. Others called her brilliant. Either way, she remained unmoved. Because real power doesn't need press. It speaks for itself. In results, in impact, in legacy. One evening, Ava's assistant hesitated before handing her a note. No sender, just one line. "I finally see it now. I was never the main character, you were." It was from Julian. A final plea. He'd lost everything. Reputation, money, influence. He wanted closure, a meeting, a moment, a word. Ava looked at the note, then folded it once and slid it into the fireplace. No anger, no glee, just peace. She didn't need closure. She was the one who closed the door. That spring, Ava hosted a garden party. Just 10 guests. No photographers. Everyone wore white. The table overflowed with fresh flowers, fruits, and freedom. Laughter danced across the lawn like wind chimes. Ava stood to speak, her voice soft but firm. "They counted us out because they didn't understand grace. But grace is strength wrapped in silence." A pause. "They thought walking away was defeat. But sometimes, leaving is the loudest victory of all." Glasses clinked. A legacy sealed, not with applause, but with alignment. 3 years had passed. The mansion Ava once left in silence had changed hands twice. Foreclosures, renovations, rumors. But no one stayed. It was said the house held bad energy. Ava didn't believe in haunted homes, only unhealed histories. So when it came up for sale again, she bought it quietly, under a trust. Not to live in it, to rewrite its ending. She didn't tell anyone, not out of secrecy, but because power moves are best made in silence. Instead of tearing the mansion down, Ava transformed it. Each room was redesigned into a healing space. Yoga, therapy, financial literacy, childcare. It became a transitional home for women starting over. Women who had been discarded the same way she once was. She named it the Ascent House. No plaque with her name, no press release. Just doors opening for women who once had none. What Julian and his family once used to break her, Word eventually reached Julian that Ava now owned the mansion, that it was thriving, that her name had begun to echo in circles he was no longer invited into. He drove by one night, alone. He didn't go inside, just sat across the street, watching lights flicker from rooms that once silenced her. She had reclaimed it, not with vengeance, but with vision. And that haunted him more than any grudge ever could. Ava launched a quiet scholarship fund under her grandmother's name, Clara's Seed. Each year, 5 young women from underserved backgrounds received tuition, housing, a mentor. Not to escape where they came from, but to understand they were never the problem. One recipient sent a letter that read, "Thank you for seeing me before the world did." Ava cried for the first time in years, not out of sadness, but because she had become the woman her younger self once needed. That was the real inheritance. One Sunday morning, Ava visited Clara's grave again. She wore a soft blue dress and brought jasmine, Clara's second favorite. She whispered, "I made sure the silence they gave me wasn't wasted." She sat for hours, thinking not of Julian, not of revenge, but of legacy, rest, and purpose. When she stood to leave, a little girl ran past chasing butterflies. Her mother called from the hill, one of Ava's scholarship recipients. Ava smiled. The cycle had broken, not by force, but by faith. And this time, Ava wasn't starting over. Ava didn't throw a party for her victories. Instead, she hosted a small dinner for the women who helped her rise. Mentors, friends, strangers turned family. No speeches, no cameras, just genuine smiles and shared stories. She raised her glass, eyes bright, to the ones who never saw me coming, and to the ones who helped me get here. They toasted softly, the kind of celebration that didn't need noise to be heard. One morning, Ava received a letter, not email, not a text, a hand-delivered envelope. Inside, a simple note from Celeste. "I underestimated you, Ava. I see you now. Forgive me." Ava read it twice, then folded it carefully. She didn't reply. Forgiveness wasn't a conversation. It was freedom, and she was already free. Ava started mentoring again, this time openly. She met with young women building their own empires in coffee shops and boardrooms. She shared her secrets about patience, power, and quiet resilience. She didn't promise easy roads, only the truth. Build in silence. Let your success be the noise. Her mentees called her a queen. Ava just smiled, because she knew the real crown was earned in solitude. Years later, Ava sat at the head of a conference table in a gleaming building. Her building. She looked around at the faces of a new generation, all ready to rewrite their own stories. Her voice was steady. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you build while no one's watching. They nodded, inspired and ready. And Ava, she was finally home. As the sun rose over the city, Ava stood on her balcony once more. Not as a woman who left, but as a woman who arrived. Her past was a chapter, not a chain. Her future, limitless. She smiled to herself, whispered, "The exit wasn't the end. It was just the beginning."